Hello everybody, welcome to ChinesePod. I'm Joy.
And I'm Joe.
In today's character mind map, we will talk about the character xiǎo, which means
small or young. And this actually comes from, I think, 3 dots or something representing sand, which is small.
So it does kind of look very small. 3 little pecks, small. And today we will talk about many words related to xiǎo. But first, let me ask you, what's the most common warning that you'll hear?
Probably xiǎoxīn.
xiǎoxīn, be careful. Okay, let's check out our words now. Okay, so here we have xiǎoxīn, that means be careful. Literally, it translates to small heart. So how would you understand how we can remember this?
I think xin can refer to the general, like the mindset or the mind as well, so not only to the physical heart. So in this way, it's not talking about small-minded people, but I think you tell somebody to have a small mind, it's like this be focused, pay attention to details, like small things, maybe this, and then it's pay attention.
Yeah, so I can say, 这里有很多车，小心点儿。
So there's many cars here, take care.
Be careful. It's like a warning sign. Okay, besides a small heart, we can also have a small voice. That's 小声.
Okay, so this you would say when somebody's too loud, probably.
小声点儿. So if somebody is being really noisy at a restaurant, I can say 你说话太大声了，小声点儿.
So you're too loud, like keep the noise down. And here it's interesting because we have the word 大声 and 小声. So 大声 is like loud, loud voice, and the opposite is what we've just learned, 小声.
小声点儿. All right, so I have one more that starts with 小. That's xiǎoqì.
Okay, qi is like air or breath and can sometimes relate to the soul or spirit of somebody, right?
I think I like to understand it as like a temperament.
Okay.
Like if somebody has a small temperament, that might mean that they're stingy.
Oh, okay. So 小气 is to be stingy.
小气.
Okay.
So I can say, 这个人很小气，10块都不给我。
So this one is very stingy. He doesn't even give me $10.
I only needed 10 more bucks to buy my food.
So sorry. Actually, that's interesting here because Chinese people are often considered in Western countries as stingy, right?
And true. I think in Chinese culture, frugality, being frugal, is a sign of virtue. So, you know, different perspectives. Speaking of cultural differences, the tipping culture is probably one of the biggest differences between China and Western cultures.
Yeah, because normally there is no tipping in China, right?
Yeah, exactly. Tipping is 小费.
Okay, so fei is fee, so that actually is very, very similar. And a small fee is then the tip.
中国人不给小费.
So Chinese people don't give tips.
美国人觉得中国人很小气.
And that is why maybe Americans do consider Chinese people sometimes as stingy.
I have to tell you a story.
Okay.
When I was in New York, in Chinatown, a Chinese owner of the restaurant chased me down the street and asked me for a tip.
Okay.
And he said, 我们不在中国.
You're not in China here, so here you have to give a tip.
Follow the rules of America. So speaking of restaurant culture and tipping, there's that famous small eats that you have to try in China, 小吃.
So this is very literal. We have small and 吃, eat, so small eats. What would maybe count as a small eat in China?
小笼包.
Steamed dumplings. Yeah, so we are speaking about small portions
Yeah.
and maybe a lower price level.
Yeah, they're easily accessible and they're really, really cheap. A lot of people would get like maybe 4 or 5 and then they can share. It's like a small meal.
And often they come at food vendors as well, street vendors, right?
Yes. Okay. So besides 小吃, we also have 小菜.
Okay, cai is actually vegetable, but I think this one is not necessarily a vegetable, but it often comes as a vegetable as well, and it's a side dish, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, what kind of side dish would that be? The cucumbers you get as a side dish in restaurants, maybe?
Cold cucumbers. And they're sometimes marinated in vinegar. And you can eat it with a main course, or you can eat it with some kind of alcohol.
You mean like the small side orders you do when you drink?
Yeah, exactly. So the only difference is that 小吃 is often hot, right? And 小菜, we see this is cold. They're both small foods, but 小吃 does make you full, whereas 小菜, it's really just like, it's almost like cod. It's like a side dish that's not a main meal.
Okay, or to have something to nip on when you drink.
Exactly. I have some sentences. 我饿了，我们去吃点小吃吧。
So you're hungry, let's grab some small stuff to eat.
Yes. And if we are already drinking, I might say, 喝酒的时候要点小菜。
Of course, yeah. I'll need some side dishes to my beer as well.
我喜欢小黄瓜。
You like the pickled little cold cucumbers.
Yes.
So when we go away from food-related things or restaurant things, there's another very common word that comes together with xiǎo, which is hour.
小时. Let's talk about why this is the small time. 时 means time. 小时, the small time. So back in the day in China, there were several ways of calculating time. We had a big hour, 大时, and that was a time frame that's 2 hours.
Okay.
And then there was a time frame that's 1 hour, 小时. So then later they got rid of that big time
one.
frame and they just make it the small one. So 1小时, 1 hour.
Oh, I always wondered how we got to that small time. Because small time sounds like seconds or something. Okay, but there was a 大时 and a 小时. Oh,
Yes.
Cool.
一天有24小时.
So there's 24 hours in one day.
After, we can also add something that's another word, and it sounds like this. 小时候.
时候 is a time as well, like a certain time somewhere. And now the xiǎo is more like related to being small or being young, right? So it's like my childhood or something.
Yes, exactly. So 小时候, my childhood. Now, adulthood is not 大时候. This only applies to when you're young. So 小时候. So I can say 我小时候爱吃糖，现在不爱吃了。
Oh, you love to eat sweets?
When I was young.
When you were young. Okay. Sweet tooth we have here. Or had. Since xiǎo means small or little as well, we can often find it in nicknames, so we refer to some younger people here.
Okay, so for example, Wang is a very common last name, so we can call a young person xiǎowáng.
Ah, okay, like little Wang.
Yeah, little Wang. But this person's not like a child. He's probably maybe in his early 20s or almost like after the teenage years. So as opposed to his father, who we would call 老王.
Like old Wang, and now we have little Wang.
Yeah.
Okay, so 20-year-old.
Interestingly, actually, 小王 has a different meaning as well.
Okay.
小王 is the male that is a third party in a relationship. So it's the guy.
Oh, you mean, are we talking about affairs here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because
so the guy.
I know the word for girls in this way is 小三.
Yeah, the small third. So if it's a girl, third party, 小三. A boy, third party, 小王. Okay, I've got a story for you. 听说小王有小王了.
That sounds like drama. So we have here little Wang has an affair with a boy. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like drama. Is it definitely, like little Wang, is that definitely a guy though?
Yeah, usually they identify themselves with their last names, they would be a guy. But if they were a girl, there would be a different nickname. And they don't usually use their last name. They might use a character from their Chinese name if it was a girl.
Ah, okay.
For instance, a girl whose name is 珍珍, she might be 小珍, like Jane or
So
Jenny.
instead of saying xiǎo plus family name, is xiǎo plus maybe a syllable that's in the name.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And if it was a guy, his nickname could be 小明. Maybe the last character of his Chinese name is Ming.
I think that's a very common name, like as a placeholder name in Chinese textbooks as well.
Yeah.
Like little Ming.
小明, that's the most common one. Okay, so after 小王, 小明, 小珍, we also use 小 to describe names that commonly apply to animals.
Oh, like nicknames for pets, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
like every black dog is 小黑.
Like, hey, little black.
小黑, and whether or not it's his name, people can call him 小黑
Oh.
or 小白.
Little white.
Yeah, so those are pet names with colors. Okay, and I've got one more, which is a title. 小孩.
Ah, that's kid. Little kid.
Exactly. Or 小孩 with an at the end. Okay, so I can say 我们家有3个小孩.
So there's 3 kids, 3 children in your house.
Yeah. So we can use 小 not only for nicknames, but also for prefixes. For example, a very common one that you'll have heard is 小姐.
Ah, this is like miss.
Miss.
So here the meaning of young may be still a little bit inside, right? But normally a prefix doesn't have a real meaning to it.
Yeah.
Okay, but here still maybe like little sister. Yeah.
You'll be talking to a person who looks around maybe maximum their 30s, 40s, maybe if they're young looking, but not for somebody that's a bit older than that. So 小姐,小心.
Like, miss, be careful.
Yeah, I have a lot of people tell me this on the streets. If my bag's open, they might tell me to close my bag. So people are kind of nice sometimes. Okay, I've got one more for you where 小 is also a prefix. 小偷.
Tow is to steal things, right? So here we're talking about a thief, actually. Or
Exactly.
a pickpocket.
Pickpocket. 小姐,小心,他是小偷.
Miss, be careful. He is a pickpocket.
Yeah, be careful.
And actually, I think, although it's not from that meaning from small, but I do think you can still memorize this somehow. Because what I imagine if I hear this word is like maybe a small kid being like a pickpocket. It's like,
小偷?
yeah, like a very small kid, like you see in those movies, like,
Yeah, or a very sneaky person, a small sneaky person.
yeah, maybe.
So that's 小偷.
So in today's character mind map, we have discussed the character xiǎo, which means small, tiny, and often refers to young people as well. In the beginning, we used xiǎo to tell somebody to lower their voice.
小声点儿.
And then we talked about small side dishes.
小菜.
And we said that you can often find xiǎo in nicknames. For instance, your pet.
小白, cute little dog.
And we find it as a prefix as well in the word for thief.
小偷. Okay, if you know any other words with 小 or you want to make some sentences, feel free to do so down below. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Joy.
And I'm Joe.
下次见.
Bye bye.
Bye.
ChinesePod, ChinesePod.